students, welcome to iTTV. In today's lesson, we are going to learn ways to prevent infections. Infections are diseases that can be passed on from one person to another. But infections can be prevented by three different ways. One is vector control, sterilization, and the third one is immunity. In today's lesson, we're going to learn two different types, that is vector control and sterilization. Immunity will be covered on the next lesson. So now we're going to learn what is the difference between vector and vector control. What is the meaning behind these two words? Let's find out what is the meaning for vector. Vector is an organism that transmits pathogens from one person to another. So vectors are organisms, and the organisms that we know are like mosquitoes, fly, mouse, tick, and so on. But in today's lesson, we're going to concentrate on two vectors in detail, that is mosquito and fly. Now, what is vector control? Now, how are we to control this vector and in a way that they would not sustain? So let's look the meaning of vector control. Vector control is to reduce the number of vector by killing the vector or stopping the reproduction of the vector. One of the example in here, that is fly. Garbage emits a foul smell. The foul smell will attract pests like the housefly. The housefly is a carrier or vector of diseases. The housefly eats and breeds in garbage. So we understand that fly exists in garbage. But we move on and learn them in detail by studying them. Why are they being in garbage? What is attracting them there? What makes them to reproduce? So we're going to see the life cycle of housefly. Let's look at the slides. Life cycle of the housefly. The life cycle of the housefly shows the different stages of its growth. Let's look at the life cycle of the housefly starting from the fly egg. So in here, let me look at the board and see I have illustrated the life cycle of a fly. It starts from adult fly, egg, larva, and pupa. So therefore, these are the four stages. The next slide, we're going to see one stage at a time. So we're going to start off from the egg. What makes the fly lay egg and at which condition? Okay, so let's look at the slides. Eggs. The female housefly lays its egg in warm and moist condition. The eggs can be found in places like garbage, human or animal waste, and decaying organic matters. The female housefly lays about 100 to 150 eggs at a time. The eggs are white. So we understand how the egg is laid and where is it laid. Let's look at the board. Eggs are laid on decaying matters, and a good example are garbage, also feces. Now garbage, if you see, we are throwing a lot of things, so there are a lot of nutrients there. So it is a sufficient nutrient for the eggs and for the fly to obtain its nutrient. So therefore, when the eggs are hatched, this little larva has enough food for it to grow. So in the next slide, we're going to learn what sustains this larva and makes it to grow. The larva emerges from a hatched egg. The larva looks like a worm. It eats whatever it finds in its surrounding. The same warm and moist conditions are best for its growth. So we understand larva's condition. Let's look at the board. So here is the larva, and where does it survive? Let's look at it. Looks like worm. Eats whatever in its surrounding, and it stays in dark and dry place. So we understand that larva will eat whatever in its surrounding. That's why the fly hatched its eggs in a garbage where there's a lot of nutrients. Not only garbage, it also lays egg at a feces. We're talking about human or animal feces because it contains a lot of nutrient. So after larva, let's look at pupa. What does it do in pupa stage? Pupa. The larva then crawls to cooler and drier places like dry, loose soil to transform into a pupa. During this stage, the pupa does not feed. It slowly transforms into an adult housefly. So pupa is a transformation from larva. We have seen what is an adult fly, egg, larva and pupa. Moving on, what cultivates larva? What happens when pupa comes out and becomes an adult fly? What does it do? Where does it get its nutrient? Let's look at the characteristics about this adult fly. Adult fly. Finally, an adult fly comes out of the pupa's skin. The adult housefly begins to mate shortly. Female housefly lays egg throughout its life. So from here we understand as soon as it comes out, gets its nutrient, the female housefly quickly reproduces, so far it generates more and more of its species. So now we understand how does it become a disease or an infection to us. So let's see how we can actually make sure they are not surviving at different stages. How to kill them so that they are not breeding a lot. So what are we supposed to do when it is in adult fly? And what are we supposed to do when it's at egg and larva and pupa? Egg and larva of the housefly survive in garbage, human or animal waste. When we dispose of garbage properly, we also prevent any egg or larva in the garbage for surviving. So we understand that egg and larva survive in the garbage. So therefore we must do something about this garbage. And what are the things we're supposed to do? Let's go to the board and understand it in detail of every stages. So let's see what we can do at egg and larva stage. So one of the ways that we can do is dispose the garbage properly. How can we dispose it? Before we dispose, we have to do certain things. That is covering the dustbin and tightly seal the garbage bag. By covering it, you are actually removing the fly from coming to it. And by sealing it tightly, you are actually not exposing the garbage to fly. So indirectly we have seen one of the ways to eradicate egg and larva is by garbage and managing the garbage properly. Now let's look at when it is at pupa. Pupa is by spraying insecticides or burning the breeding grounds of houseflies to kill their pupa. So by burning the breeding grounds, what happens here is you are creating a very high temperature that is not suitable for pupa. So therefore, if you know that place is filled with a lot of pupa, this is one of the ways. So we have seen how to control when it is at egg, larva and pupa. Let's move on to adult. How are we to control this adult fly from coming and contaminating our food and also in our household things? We should have a clean sanitation system so that human feces are not exposed to the housefly. If we keep pets like cats and dogs, the animal feces should be disposed out properly using sealed plastic bags. So one of the way is we have to make sure our sanitation system and the feces of animals must be disposed properly. Now besides that, is there any other way that we can control this fly? Yes, there is other ways. We should always cover our food to prevent contamination. We can also use insecticides and trap to kill the housefly. However, we must make sure that any food kept nearby is covered, as insecticides are poisonous. So we have looked at several ways how to control these vectors. So let's look at adult fly. First, make sure there is clean sanitation system and the animal feces are disposed properly. Have insect traps in the house. Cover the food and make sure when you are using these insecticides, the food must be covered properly so that they are not exposed to this toxic spray. Cleaning the surroundings of the house. So make sure that the house is always clean. So these are the ways to prevent these houseflies from reproducing and killing them in every stages, or at least by reducing them. So let's summarize what we have learned for today for housefly. So we understand that these are some of the ways to control the breeding of the housefly. Proper disposal of garbage, clean sanitation system, clean surrounding, and proper sewage disposal. So we have learned about housefly. Let's move on to mosquitoes. Let's look at a picture after this. Let's look at this picture. Does it look familiar? Guess again. Yes, you are right. It's a mosquito. Mosquito eggs, larvae, and pupae are located in the water. The mosquito is a carrier for malaria. Malaria is caused by Plasmodium protozoa that are carried by the Anopheles mosquito. The protozoa enter a person's body through the bite of the Anopheles mosquito. So therefore, we are exposed to malaria due to mosquito. Not only malaria, we also have dengue fever due to mosquitoes. So let's look at the life cycle of a mosquito. But before that, let's go to the board and learn about this mosquito's life cycle. From here, we can see the life cycle of mosquito. Let's start from adult mosquito, whereby it lays eggs and where it turns to become larva and pupa, and so it comes out and emerges as an adult mosquito. So this is the simple life cycle of mosquito. In the next slide, we're going to learn in detail what happens at each stages. What happens in egg, larva, pupa, and adult mosquito. We'll start from egg. Let's find out about the life cycle of the mosquito starting from eggs. The female mosquito lays its eggs on the surface of still, stagnant water. The eggs can be found in places that hold water like buckets, rain gutters, vases, pots, and tree holes. The female mosquito can lay up to 200 eggs at a time. So therefore, we understand the female mosquito lays eggs on a stagnant and still water. So the key points here, let's go to the board, is eggs are laid on surface of still and stagnant water. What does that mean? What is stagnant water means? That means a water that doesn't have a lot of vibration on it. So let's move on to larva. What happens in that stage? When the egg hatches, a larva comes out. The larva lives in the water. It lies parallel to the surface to get oxygen. It feeds on microorganisms and organic materials in the water. Larva. So it actually lives inside the water and it lies parallel below the surface of water. This is because it needs oxygen for respiration. Therefore, let's look at there. Lies parallel below surface of water to get oxygen. Key point 1. Feeds on small organisms. So we move on to pupa. Pupa. The pupa lives in still water too. It floats in water as it is light. It does not feed on anything. It steadily transforms into an adult mosquito. So what we understand about pupa is it lives inside the water, it does not feed, and it is in the surface of the water because it is light. Now, it does not feed, therefore it does not require any nutrient from the water, any organisms or any organic materials inside the water. So pupa becomes a dormant and it is in a rest condition. So let's view the next and the final one. What happens when pupa slowly emerges as adult mosquito? Finally, an adult mosquito comes out of the pupa skin. So in the adult stage, what we understand is the pupa comes out and becomes as an adult. And where does it stay? It prefers to stay in dark places. That's why mosquitoes are contained in an area where it is dark and secluded areas. So in that type of areas, we can actually see a lot of mosquitoes. So let's see how to prevent infections of mosquito. What can we do to make sure that mosquito does not survive? The egg, larva and pupa of the mosquito survive in still and stagnant water. We should remove or frequently change still and stagnant water. For example, we should replace water in vases every 2 to 3 days. We should clear drains and rain gutters so that water flows out smoothly. We should dispose the empty tins and cans, old tires and containers that collect and hold water. We can rear guppy fish to prevent larvae from surviving. This is because the guppy fish feeds on larvae. We can spray oil on water surfaces like drains and puddles. The oil prevents the larvae and pupa from breathing, thus killing them. So in here we can see a lot of details. Let's go to the board and find out different stages and different ways to prevent them from growing. Let's go to the board. Eggs are laid on surface of still and stagnant water. Therefore, to prevent the adult mosquito from laying eggs, we have to bury the empty containers which holds stagnant water and change still and stagnant water. By burying the empty container, what happens is you are discouraging the adult mosquito from laying eggs and you are not providing water, that is still and stagnant water, for it to lay eggs. So this is how we can prevent the mosquito from laying eggs. This is one stage. Let's move on. What happens to larva and pupa stage? Number 1, spraying oil. By spraying oil on the water surface, what happens here is the oil prevents from breathing, thus killing them. Now, kill whom? Is actually pupa. So what happens here is when you put a layer of oil on top of the surface of water, you actually discourage the oxygen from the atmosphere to dissolve and let them breathe. So therefore, slowly they will die. We move on. Number 2, guppy fish. By rearing guppy fish in the pond, you actually provide a feed for them that feeds on larvae. So therefore, the guppy fish will have nutrient. Their nutrient is actually pupa and larva. So we didn't stop until there. We move on to adding chemicals. Normally, we add chemicals to stagnant water. The chemical is abate to kill larvae. So therefore, we have seen several ways to discourage at different stages. Let's move on to adult mosquito. How to discourage or kill them. The adult mosquito is an insect that can be killed by insecticides, using insect traps or insect screens to kill or prevent mosquitoes from entering the house. We should keep the windows and doors closed during dusk, night and dawn. The mosquito hunts for blood during these hours. So therefore, we understand in adult stage what happens here is we have to use insecticides to kill the mosquito. Moving on, insect screen or traps in the house is to prevent these adult mosquitoes from entering the house. Moving on, cleaning the surroundings by burying the empty containers to prevent the adult mosquito from breeding. So these are the things that can be prevented at different stages. Let's summarize for this life cycle of mosquito and how to prevent them. These are only some of the ways to prevent being infected by diseases carried by mosquito: removing stagnant water, disposing empty containers, rearing guppy fish, cleaning rain gutters, using insect trap or screen, spraying oil. So these are the few methods that we can use. Now let's look at this, where one of the ways to prevent infection is, we have learned 3 methods. 1 is through vector control, 2 sterilization, and 3 immunity. As I've discussed earlier, immunity will be discussed in the next lesson. Therefore, we move on to sterilization. So what is this sterilization? Where is it used? What is the benefit of using sterilization processes? So let's learn what is sterilization. Sterilization is a process that kills all microorganisms and their spores. It is another way of preventing infection caused by microorganisms. So sterilization is to kill these microorganisms, but there are different ways of killing them. That is heat, radiation, and chemical. So let's view the next slide and understand what are the categories involved in the sterilization process itself. Sterilization can be done using heat, chemical, and radiation. Let's look at what heat sterilization is all about. We usually boil water before we drink from the tap water. Why is this? Very obvious that by boiling water we can kill the microorganisms. Let's look at the slide, the difference between boiling and autoclave. Boiling. Boiling kills most of the microorganisms in the water. Boiling is a form of sterilization using heat. We can also sterilize baby bottles and household objects using boiling water. Autoclave. It is commonly used in hospitals. It is used to sterilize medical equipments. The autoclave uses steam heated at temperature between 100 to 121 to sterilize equipments that are placed inside. The heat kills almost all microorganisms and their spores. However, it is not suitable for plastic and other materials that are destroyed at high temperature. So here, the difference between boiling and autoclave is very obvious. Boiling kills microorganisms, but not spores. But autoclave here, the advantage is it uses heat and pressure in order to kill the microorganisms and the spores. Now we have seen the heat treatment. Let's move on. Chemical sterilization. Antiseptics are used on living objects. Chemical sterilizers that are used externally to prevent infections are called antiseptics. Alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, and boric acid are other examples of antiseptics. So from the slide we understand that antiseptics are used on living objects. But how about cleaning our house, hospitals, toilets? There we use disinfectants. So let's see the other slide to understand what is the purpose of disinfectants. Chemicals sterilizers that are used on non-living objects are called disinfectants. Examples of disinfectants are bleach, Lysol, and formalin solution. Disinfectants used in kitchen, bathrooms, and hospitals. They are used to kill most infectious microorganisms. Now let's move on to radiation sterilization. Here we can see UV ray and gamma ray is used. Now there's a difference between using UV ray and gamma ray. It is only difference by their power of penetration. So pay a little attention on that. let's see what is UV radiation. UV light can be produced artificially using special devices like germicidal lamps and cabinets. These devices are commonly used in hospital to sterilize surgical instruments and the air in operating theatre. Gamma rays are radioactive rays that have most energy compared to other radiations. They penetrate deeper than UV light. Gamma rays kill most microorganisms and spores. The rays are used to sterilize medical equipment and food. So now let's look at some questions and see your understanding on this topic. Question 1. The diagram above shows an exposed garbage bin. The situation above encourages the spread of A. AIDS, B. Malaria, C. Cholera, D. Yellow fever. So we understand garbage bin attracts flies, and flies actually carry diseases like, come on, think it. Yes, the answer is cholera. So therefore, the answer here is C, cholera. Let's look at question 2. How can knowledge of life cycle of a vector help to control the disease it carries? A. We will be able to destroy it at each stage of its development. B. The vector will be able to stay longer in any stage of its development. C. We will be able to catch it at the adult stage, which is most dangerous stage. So from here we understand the answer is A. It's very obvious because we will be able to destroy it at each stage of its development. Let's move on to question 3. Which of the following methods are used to sterilize equipments and other items used to treat a wound? 1. Using antiseptics and disinfectants. 2. Heating in an autoclave. 3. Using gamma rays. Now, 1, 2, 3 looks all of them are correct. So yes, therefore the answer is D, 1, 2 and 3. So we have seen all the 3 questions. Let's summarize for today's lesson. We have learned the life cycle for flies. We have learned the life cycle of mosquito. We have learned the different types of sterilization methods. The methods are heat sterilization, radiation sterilization, and chemical sterilization, and the sub to it. So understand the lesson well because it is a very interesting topic, because this is how we actually prevent infections and diseases. In the next lesson, we are going to see immunity. Thank you for watching iTTV. I'll see you in the next lesson. Goodbye, students. I hope you enjoyed the lesson well.